Hello everyone, Kent Bressler here. I want to welcome you to Kent's Kidney Stories. During our time together over these podcasts, I'd like to discuss kidney disease. I'd like to tell you about my journey as a transplant patient, but also talk about dialysis, kidney donation, and just about anything else that might be of interest. Kent's Kidney Stories, a podcast endorsed and sponsored by kidneysolutions.org.
Hello, everybody. This is Kent Bressler, and we're going to do some podcasting. I'm looking forward to it. I have a great guest tonight. But as per usual, I want to make sure that we bring the praise where it belongs. So if you want to bow your heads, we'll say a little prayer here this evening from where I'm at. Father God, we may have our guard down and feel as though we are tortured with grief and dismay. Come, Lord Jesus, and provide us with your grace and with hope. We pray for inner strength and perseverance in today's world, and we know you're with us every step. We reach out to you and give you thanks for our many blessings which you have provided us. And we ask for the forgiveness of our many sins and fully look forward to your coming. Amen. So welcome tonight to Kent's Kidney Stories. It's a podcast for you and anyone seeking information about kidney disease. And whether it be CKD or renal replacement therapy, or maybe it's just a good old support group or mentoring that you need, please feel free to visit kidneysolutions.org. It's rich in information, and guess what? It's free. So please feel free to tap that resource, and hopefully you'll get something out of it. Okay, tonight, our guest is Brian Runge. He's an RN, a BSN, and CCTC. He's a Chief Living Donor Coordinator at NewYork-Presbyterian Hospital, Columbia University, Irving Medical Center. And I got to meet Brian the other day through our donor coordinator, Shannon Mulroy. And she's been good friends with Brian. And I kind of think I'm going to go the same route as she did and try to make as good a friendship as I can with this gentleman, because he's well-versed. He understands the concept of living donation, and that's what we're going to concentrate on tonight. If you really wanted to know, this is probably the thing that makes me the most interested in this whole concept, is the fact that living donation is a real thing, but we're not tapping it. And I wanted to make sure I could plug two books that are very, very near and dear to me because of the people who wrote them. And they're all about living donation and how it works, and really the nuances of all of what it is to be a donor. The first book is The Reluctant Donor by Suzanne Ruff. Suzanne's a great friend of mine, member of board of directors at AAKP. And she's just been a really good source of information for me. And I would like for you to pick that book up and give it a read. And the second one is Kidney to Share. It's a combo book by Martha Gershon and Dr. John Lantos. And both of them delve very closely into, the importance of being a donor. All right. Living up to the expectations that if God calls you and he feels that you would be a good candidate, you need to explore it. And these two books will help you, I'm sure, navigate this. So Brian, welcome. I'm glad to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited, overly excited to be here with you and talk about anything and everything, and especially living donation.
Well, I go back, 35 years ago, my brother gave me his kidney, and I still consider it my kidney, or his kidney, not mine. And I think when I think back about it, one of the most interesting things is I was so dadgum sick. I really didn't care where that kidney came from, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But when he I have two brothers, and he was the best candidate out of it. My other brother had a couple kids, and so it worked out that way that Kip Bressler and gave me his kidney. And so that's been my main course during these 30 some years working with kidney patients, looking at this donor side, the importance of living donation. And that's your ballpark. Tell me how you got started in becoming a transplant coordinator, a living donor transplant coordinator.
Well, it's kind of a lifelong, everybody says, oh, well, this is the one main event that started it. And it was, maybe after college or something, along your career line while you're in nursing. But I attribute it back to when I was a 6-year-old, 7-year-old kid. We had, at that time, I was living on a sailboat, and we were in Guatemala, and another little boy my age was on his boat with his parents, and we were swinging off the mast into the water with the halyards with the lines, and he swung off and belly flopped. And of course, at 6 and 7, you're tiny, and it's pretty high up off the water, so he knocked himself out. I don't really remember my thought process, but it was just jump in and pull the kid out of the water. Next thing you know, my parents are coming up on deck, and they see me dragging him onto the dinghy. And so it was like, great, I saved him. I didn't even think about that at the time. But as years go on, you realize you just saved somebody's life.
Yeah.
And that's what started me on my course in medicine, and especially nursing. I chose nursing because I knew I wanted to be at the patient's bedside, hands-on. Not to say physicians aren't, but as physicians go on in times and technology, right, they get further away from the patient. So as I graduated nursing school, I actually just started in an intensive care unit. And sure enough, the first, the major patients we were taking care of in that ICU, it was a level 1 trauma. So there was all a variety of patients, but some of my favorite patients were fresh liver transplants and fresh kidney and pancreas transplants. Little did I know that later on down the line, years and years and years later, I won't tell you how old I am, but I never thought I would get to that point. I never said, oh, I'm going to do transplant. I liked ICU. I didn't even know that people had to get worked up to get a transplant. And I was a nurse. I didn't know that there was this aspect of nursing. So as I started doing travel nursing, I found Columbia-Presbyterian by accident, of kidney transplant, just by accident. I won't go into that story, maybe in another podcast, and I just fell in love with the transplant, this aspect of it, from working the patient up after they contact us to get a transplant. And from there, I was a coordinator for 10 or 11 years on the recipient end. And I got promoted to be the chief on the living donor side. I had a choice whether it was recipient or living donor. And I really wanted a piece of the donor, because I can see this is the direction we need to take in this country and world to get more living donors, because it has plateaued over decades. It's
actually really going down. Yeah.
It's usually slightly going down, but it took this dramatic rise, and I don't remember the years, but then it's just plateaued, slightly going down now. And we need to drive that up, because honestly, if I can do that, and not many people will ever say this, if you can do something in your job to basically fire yourself so you don't have a job,
yeah,
nobody's going to say that. I will, because then I'll go find someone else to help. Well, because there's always somebody to help. If we can take care of these people and get them off the list, whether it be living, donor, deceased, that's what I want to do. And so I fell in love. I started being a chief coordinator and a in 2000 and late 2018. So I've had a few years under my belt in it. And I mean, I've had more before that. I was
Sure.
recipient coordinators who recipients had donors. So I
Right.
had strong communications on that end.
In both sides of it, you're a lot
Yes.
in both recipient and in donors. You know, one of the things we face at Kidney Solutions is this, what I call tremendous difficulty in getting people through the process.
Yeah.
All right. As an example, having an individual who goes in to donate a kidney and they've got high blood pressure, right? And some of the ways that they're evaluated in the evaluation, they get rejected right away. So it's not, you know, and I see you shaking your head, and you know what? We could go on with this, but that's very important. On an average, is there any statistic tells you how long it takes to get a living donation through the hopper? In other words, get it transplant.
Most centers have, they can run reports, all sorts of reports, and on average, it's, I would say average is about 2 to 3 months. And if you come and you're a very young donor, and even, middle-aged donor that doesn't need too much of a workup, and say, my recipient is like knocking on dialysis's door.
Right.
We can move heaven and earth. I've done an evaluation in a week, presented and transplanted the next week. But you move heaven and earth, and you create a lot of work for everybody, but that's what we do. And what is the goal is to, 2 months average workup, possibly longer. You want to thin that down, and there's a lot on our back end that patients don't realize. And when I just sit and talk with them to say, hey, look, I understand you want to do this, 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 and this quickly, but you also have to understand our job. And I'm not going to tell you my whole job, because that's just going to spend too much time spinning our wheels. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of intricacies of appointments and this and that cause this hang up. And it's a bad hang up to have. I don't like saying, oh, well, the physician doesn't have an appointment until 2 months, 2 months from now. That's bad, not good.
No. And I think it too, I mean, in the industry, think that there's a lack of willingness to expedite. In other words, okay, so what? You're having a transplant, So, and meet that all the time. Well, you get appointment for your cardiologist, and he's going to see you in 2 months. Well, I know how scheduling goes, and there should be some type of fast track. Is that your opinion? There should maybe be some type of fast track for a living donor?
For a living donor, there shouldn't need to be a fast track. It's a healthy individual that theoretically doesn't have any medical history, or if they do, it's not a problem. So it's just basically like bringing someone in to do a history and physical on their yearly checkup. Oh, you're doing great. Okay. There shouldn't need to be a fast track. But yes, there needs to be, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of solutions that go through my head. I constantly think about this, and you bring up a very good point too of the willingness to go the extra mile. Being a nurse is difficult, and it takes a different kind of person. Not everybody's cut out for it. I had nurses, went through nursing school, straight A's. I was not a straight A student. I was a very good student, B's and A's, but I had plenty of A students in my class. And I was like, wow, these girls are going far. And they got out and couldn't hack it.
Yeah.
And it's a different mentality. You got to have and I'm not saying it's everybody, but again, out there nowadays, it's also how you brought up and your work ethic too. Are you going to it's now Eastern time, 7:30, and I'm still at work. I'm still doing some things and here and there for patients, and I'll go home. but not everybody is like me or like the next person like that. And it's tough. You know, you got to get those. When we hire now, we try and hire personality and not necessarily experience, because we can teach this to everybody. We want those go-getters. We want the people that are going to do this extra mile, even for the recipients.
Right. That's essentially what we're talking about here. That you can call it fast track or anything, but it's a mentoring situation where you're actually going to handcuff yourself to that donor and work them through the situation. And you do it on the recipient side also. Yeah. We have both sides at Kidney Solutions. Of course, we run both sides, but I think in essence, the most important thing to remember is the fact that the person who comes to you who wants to donate is something very special. This is not just your regular Joe or Jane. That's very special. Don't you feel that way?
Oh, extremely special. We treat our donors that way because they are. It's just, that is it. And I tell them, don't let anybody tell you otherwise. They thank us afterwards. You know, you call them for their follow-up. They say, thanks for everything. And I go, don't thank me. I didn't do anything other than help you through the process.
Yeah, get you down the line.
Yeah.
I had
you know, it brings to mind too about fast tracking too, is that the lack of education out there, and that's nobody's fault but our own in medicine and donation, that if we get better education out there for everyone around, just like we all know in the world that, okay, at 40 as a man, I'm going to need a prostate exam, or now what, it changed to 45 and colonoscopy at 50. If that was common knowledge, certain things in transplant about matching, it would make it even a lot quicker and easier for recipients that have multiple donors too. If they knew certain things before they came to us, it wouldn't be a hold up after when they come to us.
That's exactly right. That's it. And that, you know, in the book, Kidney to Share, Marcia Gershon talks about that.
Okay.
She talks about the inability to understand what is expected of a person. All right. And we just like, it's not like you grab them by the hand and walk them through this. They do come as lambs. They have no clue. First of all, a lot of them may not have even been to doctors, but it stands to reason that, in my mind, if you have a young transplant donor wants to donate, how much it has to be done to make sure they're a good candidate. I mean, we go through testing to the max, and I'm telling you, I can see that on the elderly end. I'm going to use that because I am. All right.
Yeah.
I can see that if you're going to do a 75 or 70 or 60 or, you know, upper 50. Anyway, pick a number. But that younger candidate, the ones that we really ought to be working at, those are the ones that we really shouldn't have to spend lots and lots and lots of time digging. Right?
Yeah, no, it's
and expensive.
Well, we joke, and we joke with the donors. You're getting $1 million workup, right? And I never go to think of, well, the recipients are getting $1 billion workup, but the donors get $1 million workup. You know, the workup from 18 years old is the youngest will accept a donor potentially. To I'd say 18 to 49 is all pretty much the same workup. So an 18-year-old donor will do the same workup as a 49-year-old donor, assuming we don't find anything extra to add on to those people. And it's not much. Even the 50 to X, and the X is we don't have an age cutoff. Those are great donors, and they don't need that much more either, because some of the workup is their healthcare maintenance they're already doing.
Yeah, because they're healthy.
Things.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
It's that surprise, isn't it? The one that comes in with diabetes or comes in with a hidden heart condition, and that happens a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, we do it. We've seen it a lot more. And again, as the years go by or months go by, transplant is always evolving and changing. It's not static. A lot of things are static, like 10 years from now, certain policy may still be the same, but certain things are constantly moving. And now we're sending a lot more donors to do a cardiac eval if they have left ventricular hypertrophy, when before the old days, it was like scattered, hit or miss. Now it's more common, and it's just a thing to do. But now with virtual visits and having a good relationship with your referring providers like cardiology or pulmonology, they can get these people in faster and see them. They don't need to see them in person. They just do it virtually and say, hey, look, we reviewed this and this is what we need to do next.
Right.
So virtual visits have helped lower that, oh, you got to wait before you can get in.
Yeah. The threshold of failure, I call it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Another thing too is like you can look at this through the continuum of an evaluation, but the front loaded part of that evaluation is that the breeze or whatever the evaluation is of the candidate on the first blush. They call in or they get online and they do the breeze application or whatever application your facility has. Speak to me about that. Is that something that could be streamlined even more so, or do you think it's pretty solid?
So we developed here an online intake. We call it the intake, the donor questionnaire.
Yes.
And it's basically a brief, they go to our website and it says, I want to donate, click, and it brings them to this 2-page, fill out these demographic and information about yourself. Takes
2 pages.
2 minutes.
2 pages. Yeah.
2 pages. What most of it is, who are you and how can we contact you back and mail you stuff if we need to mail stuff. And then the rest of it is certain medical questions that or bigger medical questions that we want to catch and rule you out if you have it. So we don't want to waste your time. Like,
sure,
diabetic. Okay. That's that.
That's not going to work.
But can you streamline what we have? Oh, of course. Of course. Because what happens is they'll fill that out. We want to then within 24 to 48 hours have that first someone at the center contact that donor to say, we got your questionnaire. It's approved or not approved. And if not approved, why? If it's approved, let's schedule your matching. But with short staffing and with things, it lags a little bit. So there's always room for improvement. But I have found that donor questionnaire is a great start because anybody will click on it. Even if they're unsure of wanting to donate, and then we'll find that out later. Like, okay, you have some hesitancies. Let's talk about that.
Sure. That's what we do, right? Yeah. That's what we do.
And also, if I might add, and it's not to coerce them because that's not what we do, but if you create a roadblock, and it could be the smallest little pebble of a block, and you're going to walk over it, but you see it there as a donor, it's going to stop you, and you're going to go, yeah, I'm not going to do this.
No way. Yeah.
I want them to say, yeah, I don't want to do this after they talk to me or the center and get educated.
Yep.
Not on that first little pebble in the way of, well, this form doesn't work. It's not submitting or something very basic.
Right. Well, that's the question. That's really the question. You've answered it perfectly because we know that they're flags. Mm-hmm. All right. They're the red flag that you wave. But sometimes the transplant program may take it to an extreme and just drop a person that they can be worked through as a question of blood pressure. Right. And that was stressed in the one of the books about having high blood pressure, but being able to treat it, right?
Right.
I've had people call me back and said, well, they rejected me because I had high blood pressure.
Right.
And I said, well, what did they say? And they just said, I'm not a candidate. Well, now that kind of sets me back a little bit. Then you got to say, well, let's go back and talk to them about this and see if evidently you're on treatment, right? So, I mean, it's a kind of like an adjustment that needs to happen, but it needs to be very aggressively occurring. And then you mentioned not having, essentially, you're pretty busy. And I understand that. I get it.
Yeah.
They just,
it's never ending.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And people laugh. Oh, everybody's busy. Somebody just steps in. Well, you got to look at it from the standpoint of when you pick up that phone and you've been at it, you've been grinding it for 7-8 days, maybe, and long, you still have to turn on the light that says, hey, listen, let's work through this. Let's kind of try to figure out what it is about your blood pressure, or, maybe, you've had a valve replacement, whatever the deal is. Someone's got to be able to talk to somebody about it right away, not,
Yes.
a week
Right.
later, or, you're 24 is probably the max that we see. That's what I see. But it's also nice to be able to talk to someone right off the get-go, right?
Right. And you have to think, if you're in the middle of a workup, meaning here at Columbia, you're doing the entire evaluation, running around, doing a stress test, coming to see the surgeon, and that's when we first get your first blood pressure. It might very well be high because you've had a stress of a day, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we have to, I try very hard to teach my other coordinators and myself I have to think about that and go, okay, let's not jump the gun and call the patient and say, okay, let's do a 24-hour monitor. You have high blood pressure. Because what is that going to do? The patient will be like, I have high blood pressure. My doctor never told me that. There's always, you start basic. Okay, great. You have high blood pressure today. And always the next response is, well, I was running around. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Okay, I'll take that. But you might have it. You might not. Let's repeat it before we jump to the bigger test. And then let's repeat it again, because it's easier to do a couple repeats than just jump to a 24 hours sometimes, because, and also you have to understand that your audience should understand too, though, certain centers do have policies on, they're very, very strict on blood pressure and pre-diabetes. We as a donor center, you can't mess around with that. And times are changing. Again, it's very fluid in transplant. It's going to change. We're looking at now in the future, just, okay, great. Before, people are on one high blood pressure, sure, we'll consider it. 10 years ago, if you were Caucasian, one blood pressure, they would allow it. If you were African-American, Hispanic, Asian, on any blood pressure med, they wouldn't allow it, because those populations of the minorities have a higher tendency to develop uncontrolled high blood pressure later in life. But now studies are showing like there's no point. So I have a feeling in the future that is all going to change as well, including even the levels for hemoglobin A1C and, quote unquote pre-diabetes.
Right. And I think that's where this conversation's got to start. I mean, I'm going to make a statement here, and I've been drugged through the knothole backwards on it several times. We have a propensity to progress very quickly to dialysis, whereas we could very easily work with patients early diagnosis, really work with them through the nephrology community to get them up to speed and keep them off dialysis. And that's a whole new shift in that. And that's where living donation really comes in. If we don't have that donor pool, which we don't, I mean, it's out there, I think it's just not been nurtured. Right.
Yeah, right. I don't think it's been tapped fully.
Nope.
It's like a blocked up tap, just dripping slowly. We need to open that floodgate.
Right. And I think that's really the crux of our conversation tonight. It's not to beat up on transplant programs or beat up on situation. That's not it. What we're trying to do is find a way to make this a win situation for the transplant program and the living donor. Yeah. And that's why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right?
I tell everybody, don't rule yourself in or out. Don't let your anybody outside of transplant do that. Fill out the form. Let me or my team do that. We are the experts in transplant. Even I've seen primary doctors, unfortunately, say, "Oh, you're not a candidate for transplant.
Yeah,
you're diabetic." No. Let us do that.
Or you're overweight, or you got high blood.
Yeah.
No, you don't do. I agree with you. I think that should be well stated now from the point. We never at Kidney Solutions make a decision. We never do that. We say as quickly as you can get that filled out, the better off everyone's going to be. And you march right in there, and we work right hand in hand with them. If you have trouble and you can't give us a call back. I'll walk you through it. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But just get them in the system.
Around. Yeah.
Right.
Getting in the system is for recipients is key early. And that is a problem in what, you know, medicine in the United States now, is getting these people in early so they not necessarily get listed for transplant too early, but at least they're in the system. If you're already on your way to dialysis and very close, and now you're getting into transplant, guess what? You have probably another year to get worked up. You're going to end up on dialysis, no matter how much you beg or we move heaven and earth. You're still going to end up. We need you in early, not
absolutely
2%.
Absolutely, and you're really talking the way we think. And there are nephrologists out there that are in that same boat now that are feeling we got to look at the front end of this. All right. Because there's always going to be dialysis. I don't care how you cut it at some point in time, unless, you know, all of these other things come to fruition. But in all honesty, the sooner you can get a diagnosis of CKD, the sooner you can start working with them. Then you can do your education. Your education shouldn't start when you're stage 5. Right.
And there's diets. Sometimes diets can stave off the decline of your function and things. And, you know, and key is getting, you know, if you end up seeing your doctor and you're continuously having elevated creatinines, hopefully they refer you to a nephrologist, and that nephrologist can say, hey, look, you may or may not need a transplant. It's too early to tell, but let's start talking about it.
Exactly. And I don't think that conversation's been had. I think it's open.
Definitely not.
You agree. I just never, I say that most of the community is okay with dialysis. Yeah. But yet the fact that there are people out there that can come in stage 3, the nephrologist won't see them at stage 3, but early 4s, I mean, that's prime time to start talking transplant first.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, most definitely. And if you have a nephrologist that's kind of firsthand, maybe trained in transplant, right? But he didn't go into it. He went into private practice nephrology, but maybe trained under transplant. That nephrologist guaranteed is going to refer you at the right time.
Oh, sure.
You know, for the most part, you know, and I don't know statistics out there about this, but I would venture a guess, not that they want to keep you on dialysis, but I have my own sneaking suspicions on that, but I don't want to.
Yeah, we're not going to talk. We're not going down that bunny trail.
We're not going that rabbit hole. But I would think that they just don't know any better, and they accidentally not refer you. I've had dialysis centers not refer or discuss transplant to patients.
Oh,
she contacted me, and I said, "How'd you find out about us?" And we talked. And she's like, they never even mentioned it to me. And she'd been on dialysis 20 years. 20 years.
I know. I've been there.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And what's really tragic about it, that's an opportunity that the patient never had an opportunity to stand up for themselves.
Yeah.
They thought whatever the doc says goes, you know, and and in all honesty, the patient choice, the patient voice is the most important thing of this. You listen to people, Brian. You have to listen to them, especially if they have kidney disease. You don't just say, here's what's good for you. You say, here are your options.
Yes. It's all about that. I mean, I've noticed in my, 13 and a half years here with Columbia Kidney Transplant, that education is just, I mean, we all know education is key, but it's really key. And if you simply just kind of tone it back the way you educate and not throw out the big words at everybody, just bring it down to a level like we're talking now, or just I would meet you on the street and tell you about what I do for work as a friend. That's the best way I've gotten through to all my patients, whether it be donors or recipients. And this light bulb goes on of like, aha, I get it. Even how deceased donor call works. That is a very complex thing that patients don't really need to know about. But when I do explain it to them, they go, oh, I get it. And I do that. So then it makes it a little easier for them to understand why they may or may not be getting calls. So it's all education. And the better we do it, which we're not the best at it, but we're trying and we're doing a lot better in the nation and in the world about it. But again, we need to get living donations, get the word out there.
I do.
How easy is it to match?
Yeah.
How easy is it to do the workup? How easy is it to get through? But there are these things along the way that, you know, that can have these roadblocks, whether it be mental, you know, or us, the hospital.
Yeah. Then, and everybody's got to accept the fact that no matter what goes on, there are roadblocks. There's always bumps in the road.
Yeah.
If you're in the lane that you're supposed to be in, you're not in the ditch. If you're in your lane, then when you get that bump, you can get over it and get through it.
Yeah.
If you don't have any recourse, you just get bump after bump after bump.
Yeah.
You're just going to get tired and you're just going to quit.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want. So the earlier and the better and the more, the better, as far as education goes.
Get the story. If for recipient wise, the big question is, how do I find a donor? And it's like, well, you just got to get the word out there. Well, I don't want to tell anybody my story. I'm like, well, then you're not going to find many donors other than maybe a family member.
No.
If you get the word out there that you need a transplant and that anybody can be a donor, even if they're not a match, that's what you need to do. It's a lot better to do that. And with today's day and age of social media now exploding, I'm in my 40s. And so I come from a time where there was no internet and social media to seeing where social media is nowadays. And that's what I tell donors, write it on your car window. Where, you know, you hear about the Disney World t-shirt guy where he wrote his, I need a kidney. Here's my blood type. Call this number.
And he got thousands of calls. Yeah.
You know, you always hear about these stories and you're like, okay, until you see them. I was in Disney 4 years ago with my family, extended family, everybody there. And no joke, this guy walks right by me. I need a kidney, blood group O, and his phone number. And I ran. I like dropped my kids and said, we're not going in line right now. I ran and tapped him on the shoulder and said, we need to talk.
Yeah,
and we had a great conversation. And I don't know what happened, but I've told patients, put it on your car, put it on social media, and it works. It doesn't work for everyone, but it works.
No, you still have people that wait on the waiting list and they don't get living donors. They end up getting a deceased donor 4, 5, 6 years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
But, and there's another thing too, where people, recipients are searching and searching and searching. I've had guys and gals that have had 20 and 30 people go through the whole system, and none of them were, you know, that it wasn't a match issue. It was a health issue. All right.
Yep.
And so they could have even been a match for them, but they had diabetes, or they had really, you know, a bad heart, or they were way obese, and had, if you have someone in a condition like they're overweight, you can work with them. That's what we try to do, you know. Don't give up the idea of not donating. Let's give up the idea of being large. Let's get small. Let's get down, because it's going to help you. All right. It's going to help your health.
And these donors who donate, they tend to tell me afterwards that, hey, I even now am living a healthier lifestyle. It's caused, thank you. It's caused me to lose more weight. And on the story of weight and medical issues, getting ruled out as a donor. Okay, you have high blood pressure, sir, and you're overweight. Why don't you lose 20 pounds? Call me back and we'll retest you. Oh, see, some are very motivated and will do it, and they do. You know, and then you get it. So if you have a social media campaign saying you have 20 donors that want random people that want to test, we only work one donor up at a time. And let's say that one donor passes, flying colors, goes to donate. What about those other 19? Now, they may not want to fully go through, but maybe 18 or 15 or 12 of them do, but we never go back to investigate and say, hey, do you want to maybe...
See, that's a very key point. Explain that process, what you would do to capture those folks, to educate them, to get them in. That's, I think, one of the keys to the jail that opens it up for people to get out and become a donor.
So we let them know that, you know, hey, look, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so already has a donor being worked up. You're a match for them, but they have a donor being worked up. We only do one at a time. If for some reason this donor doesn't work out, and can we contact you? And we'll contact them back sometimes and say, hey, look, that donor didn't work out. Would you like to come forward and be the next one? Yes, no, that's up to you. But at that time, we say, look, if it does end up working out, you can think about non-directing donor.
Absolutely.
Later in life or now in your home state, because you may not be from New York, but the recipient is. So maybe they're from Idaho. Okay, we'll call a transplant center near Idaho, and maybe you can be a non-directed donor, meaning you just can either help one person out, or you can start a huge chain and help multiple people out.
Walk in and be an altruistic donor.
They actually, they stopped using that term recently, and I've been tongue-tied. I'm altruistic. Now they're talking about non-directed. They're the same in the but I kind of like the altruistic.
That's what people know.
That's what people know, and it changes. So since transplants always change, and they change terminology, and it's like, well, there's some terminology that maybe we shouldn't change because it's good from the old days that everybody knows the term.
Right. But then again, whatever's the vernacular, I'm beholden. I have no problem with that. We'll change we'll go indirect. It's not a problem. Another thing too is the difference between cadaver and deceased. If a person,
humongous.
I have a story to tell you about that, and people can listen in. And very short. I gave a lecture one night and had slides and was using the term cadaver. This is years ago. And afterwards, this lady, short little gal, walked up to me and she just started reading me the riot act. My son was not a cadaver. He died. And I was able to allow him. We gave permission to use his kidneys, and she went on and on and on and on. Yeah. And of course, I got smaller and smaller and smaller. And guess what? I've never used the term cadaver again in my life.
Yeah.
See,
it's hard to use those terms. I even have a problem saying deceased donor. It's just because what if you do run into a donor family? It just.
Well, I did. I ran into one.
Yeah, you got it. And there's nothing you can do other than own up and go, you're right.
Yes, ma'am. I will. And I'll take those slides. I went home that night, took those slides out. I changed them. Oh, yeah. And then I tell that story because I want it passed along. And, because you still see it. You even see it in the literature, them using cadaver. Whatever. But needless to say, back to the point of living donation. Do you feel that, well, I'm just putting you on the spot. Let me do it a different way. There's a lot of talk about paying people to donate. What is your feeling? Not your own personal feeling, but what have you heard? What is in the industry? What are they saying about that? Is that something that's starting to get some traction or not?
It's starting to get traction. It's very early. And my personal thoughts, I'll put my personal thoughts out there. You just have to make sure that we don't pay donors to give us, to get the kidney, because that's completely a federal crime.
Sure.
But there's compensation. So we say, look, you can't be paid to donate your kidney, but you can be compensated for work, lost wages, food, travel. Why can't we in this country or even the world start thinking about, okay, well, we're not going to pay you, the donor, all right, but maybe your kids get a free ride at college, right? But it's all an ethical, these are very ethical, things behind any part of this payment plan. But it's worthwhile. Why not having a conversation or thinking about? I think Israel at one point, and I could be wrong in this, but I'm pretty sure this was one of my newer career of transplant here. They had such a low donor pool, deceased, signing the license.
Right.
And they did something very similar to that, where it was almost, if you don't sign that you want to donate your organs and then you need a transplant, well, guess what? You're not getting transplant because you didn't want to consider donation, right? And suddenly that pool just grew. So why can't we talk about something here about some form of, not necessarily payment, I don't like that term.
Well, it's compensation.
Compensation of, I don't know, maybe like I said, non-direct of their family member or something who needs, you know, college or some form of, and I've talked to the doctors, many doctors about this, and they have their own opinions on it. A lot have thought that this is definitely going to get traction. And I think it very well might. But again, you want to make sure that the donors are coming for willingly, not for this extra special, you know, compensation of something.
And that's the key.
You could also argue, there's plenty of points to argue left and right on this. Of there's these donor ticket token programs of, if you donate a kidney, you get a ticket. That way, if you or your family member or somebody needs a transplant, you can give that ticket to them, right? What's the difference? It's not monetary, but it's still it's still
a free hotel room.
Room and free something in your hands, you know, so it's all the same. It's just a matter of how we spin it and look into it.
Right.
I would not want to talk about that later, and, you know, in the world of like trying to figure that problem out.
That's something that is in Dr. Lantos, the guy who co-wrote this book on kidney to share. He's an ethicist, and he's approached it. You might want to read it just for your own edification.
I definitely will.
I will send the information to you so you can get it. But because Martha would talk about what it was like to, you know, having to put her blood work on ice to send it to Mayo Clinic and dry ice. And I mean, there was no way of her being able to go to her facility and get it done. They had to have it done there. And I mean, it goes on in pretty much detail. And again, not to kick Mayo around. You know what Mayo's like. I love Mayo. Right. All right. I'm loving Mayo. And I send people there. I want them to go there because they're open. But we do have some handcuffs on the transplant program and on the patient, and definitely on donors. Completely. We got to open that. We have to have that, like you said, Brian, conversation. You can talk yourself blue. Nobody's selling anything. All right. What we're doing is talking, and then let it reverberate. Unfortunately, in medicine, it takes forever to get things through, but at least there's a conversation.
Yes.
Right. But John really has
laparoscopic donor nephrectomies in the old days.
Yeah.
That wasn't what it was. 40 years ago, you know, it was an open.
My brother,
in half, and your brother.
My brother lost it. He lost He lost 1.5 ribs.
Yes.
They removed those so they could withdraw the kidney out of a ventral incision, and then give it to me.
Yep.
He had hell afterwards.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
He came to my room. I think it was the second day. I'm up and around. And he looked at me and said, "What the hell did you get me into?"
Yeah. And you were telling donors, you're going to be in more pain than the recipient. What?
Yeah.
Like, I'm helping, I don't want to hurt myself. Right. And that's what it was.
Right.
And now, fast forward to now, laparoscopic gets invented, and people think at that time, that is the most asinine thing I've ever heard of. But how did it get to the point of where we're at now? Conversation and thinking, and saying, hey, let's think about this and talk about it and see what would be the bad outcomes, the good outcomes, and then try it. That's how we get in medicine. Yeah.
It was not experimental.
Right.
It was not. I mean, it was an acceptable surgical process that had, a pronounced effect on the whole industry. And it's
huge. It was such a big game changer.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that even though it is laparoscopic and that causes you only to be in the hospital 1 or 2 days versus the open nephrectomy, which you're talking weeks, you would think an influx of donors or an influx of this, but we still have that plateau, and it's simply because people may not know about the incisions. They may not know how long. Most of them don't know how long they're going to be in the hospital.
They don't.
One day. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact too that they can have complications. They don't ever gear away from complications. You don't either. I know you don't. You tell people, this is not simple.
Right.
This transplant is not simple. The outcomes when you look at somebody a year down the road may look simple, but to get that year out, I'll tell you what, it's tough. It really on both sides. All right.
It is. Yes.
Yeah.
You're very right.
Okay. Listen, will you come back?
Oh, maybe? Gosh. Yeah. I will come back as my schedule. I will come back as much as you want and my schedule allows.
I would really like to have a panel, and I would like to have you on it, and a guided panel. And we'll talk about that after we're done here. But do you have anything else that you would like to? I love the conversation, and we're going to do this again. I guarantee it. I guarantee it, Brian. And
I really appreciate this opportunity. I've been wanting to do this since I started in transplant, because I know the conversation is not out there enough education. So this is my first podcast ever, and my first taste of finally getting 13 and a half years later of getting my idea out there of I just want to talk about it. Let's talk about it. The one thing I will say, your transplant coordinator is your best friend.
Absolutely. And I say it all the time.
Call them.
Absolutely. You couldn't have even the surgeon, this person, this RN, if you will, is your best.
Yeah.
I mean, they're your best lead.
Yeah. They will tell you what you need to do, where you're at, what's going on.
Yep.
And they will guide you through it. And that way you don't have to stress so much. Let us stress. That's what our job is, to stress for you.
Are we going to take that to the bank? Because it is true. You work closely with your transplant program. That's all there is to it. Now, some of them are slower. I'm not even going to go there. All I'm going to say is things get better when people address it. They talk about it.
Yeah. Like you said, we're not knocking this. People are slower, and that's okay. It's every transplant center is different because some bigger than others, but we just know that we're improving. Everybody always is. We're not perfect here. We're not perfect by any means, but we try very, very hard.
Nope. But there's no use berating anyone or beating them down, because that they're still going to be there. Only then they have chips, and they also, they just don't. It's not acceptable.
Right.
We have to talk. I think that's essentially what's going on in the country. We've stopped talking.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay, just straight, and that's enough. That's enough said about that. But I really appreciate you, Brian. Dadgummit, man.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate it. This is great.
Well, if you have somebody, like I said, we have our support groups at Kidney Solutions on Monday nights. You're welcome, more than welcome. We'll send you an invite. I would love to have you come in and be part of that. Yes, send definitely. Some of your transplant coordinators in. We would love to have them there. If we'll have you on. I also have a good friend, and I'll talk to you about that later, who I think we need to get you on his radio show. So that's what we're going to do.
Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
All right. I'm going to tell everybody now that this is a tough time, but we're doing so much more in the kidney world. Everything is much, much better. 40 years ago, when I was first diagnosed, we didn't have much in the way of treatments. And now we've got new drugs coming out. I encourage you, if you have had a diagnosis of CKD or kidney disease, get a hold of us at Kidney Solutions. We're more than happy to point you in the right direction, give you all the information that we have, and tune you into people like Brian. We're here for you. This is about kidney disease and helping people. It's not about numbers. It's not about performance. It's about people. All right. Take care of people. You take care of the problem. All right. See you later. And remember, as I always say, keep breathing.